He was a billionaire who had everything, except the right to call his children his own. So one day, he stripped away his name, his money, and his pride, and went back to the woman who hated him, pretending to be a poor man, just to see the triplets he'd lost. Before we dive in, your support means everything to this channel. Hit the subscribe button, like, and tell me where you're watching from so I can shout you out in the next story. Because what's about to unfold will keep you watching till the end. Now, let's begin. The bus hissed as it stopped on the corner of Greenfield's quiet main street. Malik Carter stepped off wearing thrift store jeans, a faded jacket, and an old baseball cap that hid the kind of face that once filled magazines. He'd built Carter Enterprises from nothing, became the kind of man people Googled, but none of that mattered here. Here, he was just Mason Cole, a man with calloused hands, looking for work. The Carolina air smelled like rain and regret. Small diners buzzed with laughter. The kind of laughter he hadn't heard in his own home for decades. A rusty sign creaked overhead. Brooks Cafe and Antiques. That's where she was. Sana Brooks. His ex-wife. The woman he'd driven away. The mother of the triplets he hadn't seen since they were toddlers. Now adults he'd never met. He paused outside the window, watching her pour coffee, smile at customers, tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. She looked older, stronger, like someone who had learned to rebuild herself piece by piece. "Sir?" the waitress inside called when she noticed him staring through the glass. "You coming in or just window shopping?" Malik blinked, forcing a small grin. "Yeah, coming in." The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. Warm air wrapped around him, fresh pastries, coffee, cinnamon, nostalgia. Sana looked up, wiping her hands on her apron. "Afternoon. First time here?" "Yeah," he said, lowering his voice. "Just passing through." "Well, welcome to Brooks Cafe. What can I get you?" "Coffee. Black. Straight to the point." She smiled faintly. "Name for the order?" "Mason." She wrote it down without a second thought. "All right, Mason. Coffee, no sugar." Her tone was professional, polite, distant. She didn't recognize him. That hurt more than he expected. As she turned to pour the drink, Malik's eyes wandered to the framed photos lining the wall. 3 young adults, early 20s, standing beside Sana at the cafe's grand opening. A son and 2 daughters. His chest tightened. The boy, tall, athletic, proud. The girls, radiant, each carrying a trace of Sana's smile. His children. When Sana handed him the cup, their fingers brushed. The contact sent a pulse straight through him. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he murmured. "Just been a long road." "Where from?" "Atlanta." "That's a long way to come for coffee." "Some things are worth the trip," he said quietly. She looked at him a second too long before glancing away. "You staying in town?" "Thinking about it. Need work, roof over my head." Sana hesitated. "Actually, we've been needing help around here. The storeroom door sticks. The shelves in the back lean like they're drunk. You good with tools?" Malik smiled faintly. "I've built a few things in my life." "Good," she said, handing him a small key. "Let's see what you can do, Mr. Mason." He walked through the cafe toward the back hallway, heart pounding, his reflection caught in a cracked mirror. His disguise was good. Scruffy beard, plain clothes, no trace of the billionaire he used to be. Inside the storeroom, he exhaled, finally letting his mask slip for a moment. "They're adults now," he whispered. "How do I even start?" "Yo, you lost?" a voice called. Malik turned. A tall young man leaned on the doorway, arms crossed, confident smirk on his face. The same smirk Malik saw every morning in the mirror. "Nah," Malik said evenly. "Your mom said the door's stuck." "Oh, right. You the new maintenance guy?" the young man asked. "Guess so." "I'm Jordan," he said, extending a hand. My sisters and I help out here when Mom's swamped. She said she finally hired someone. Malik shook his hand, gripping just enough to keep his voice steady. Mason, good to meet you. Welcome to Greenfield, Jordan said. Not much happens here, but we got good pie. Good to know. As Jordan left, Malik's eyes followed him. The posture, the laugh, even the way he tapped the door twice before leaving. Every detail screamed his son. When he was gone, Malik leaned against the wall, eyes wet. You don't even know me, he whispered. But I've known you your whole life. Later that day, Sana brought him a bottle of water. You're fast. That door's been jamming for months. I've fixed worse. Really? She said, smiling. You talk like a man who's been through some things. He met her eyes. You could say that. She studied him for a moment. You remind me of someone. My ex-husband. His pulse jumped. That a good thing or a bad thing? Depends on the day, she said softly, and walked away. As the cafe emptied and the sun dipped below the trees, Malik stepped outside, watching her lock the door. See you tomorrow, Mason, she said without looking at him. Yeah, he replied. Tomorrow. When she disappeared into the night, he whispered to himself, I lost my family once because I was too proud to fight for them. Not again. He turned toward the dark street, his voice barely audible. I'll earn their trust back, one lie at a time. The morning cracked open with the smell of butter and grief. Sana's cafe ran on both, one baked, one buried. By 8, the place was humming. Regulars filled the booths. Gospel played low like a prayer someone forgot to say out loud. And I stood in a storeroom pretending to be a man I'd never been. Morning, Mason. Sana's voice had a way of sounding like she knew you before you were born. She set a tray of fresh biscuits on the prep counter and didn't look up right away. When she did, it was with that steady gaze that made me wish I deserved it. You hungry? Always, I said. And it was the truest thing I'd said in months. She slid a biscuit toward me, then set another aside for someone else without thinking. Nyla's late again. She swears the traffic lights hate her personally. Nyla? My eldest, she said, a soft pride moving across her face, though it didn't stay long. By 6 minutes. She'll tell you it's by destiny. The door chimed, and Destiny walked in wearing a blazer and hoop earrings, a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. Nyla Brooks had her mother's eyes and my gait, efficient, impatient, like time owed her something. She kissed Sana's cheek, clocked me with one clean glance, and dropped the portfolio on the counter. You're the new guy, she said. The door still opens. Miracles do happen. Morning, I said. Morning, she replied, already moving. Mama, I met with Whitaker at First Carolina. He wants to reassess the loan terms. Translation: more interest, less time. Sana's mouth tightened. We'll figure it out. Yeah, Nyla said, not believing it yet. She turned halfway toward me. I'm Nyla. My brother Jordan's the tall one who thinks he's a comedian, and my sister Amara's the one who actually is. Good to meet you, I said. She nodded and tucked a stray curl behind her ear, eyes still measuring me like I was a line item. Where you from? Mason? Atlanta, I said. A sound that meant she heard more than I said. You in construction? In life, I said. That earned me the ghost of a smile. Cute. She glanced at the clock. If Whitaker calls, tell him I'm in transit. And if Dorian shows up, I'll handle Dorian, Sana said, too fast. Nyla looked at her mother for a beat that said we've had this fight before, then grabbed her portfolio and disappeared into the morning like a woman with a list and a grudge against the clock. Dorian? I asked, casual as I could manage. Old friend, Sana said, and a problem I don't have time to entertain. The door chimed again, and the problem walked in like he'd been cast to play himself. Dorian Pierce. Local contractor with a smile he rented and shoulders he liked people to notice. He carried a bouquet big enough to be a dare. "Sunny," he said, like her name was a song. "I brought sunshine." "You brought allergies," she said, taking the flowers anyway because manners are muscle memory. "What do you need, Dorian?" "Same thing I've needed for 2 years." His eyes swept the cafe, landed on me, lingered. "And who's this?" "Mason," I said, offering a hand before Sana could decide. Dorian shook it like he was trying to find my pulse. "We don't get many new faces in Greenfield. What brings you?" "Work," I said. "Plenty of that," he said, and didn't look away. "You know, Sana, my offer stands. You let me buy out that loan, I'll put a new awning on this place, redo those floors, add a patio out back. We'll make Brooks Cafe the kind of spot folks drive in from Charlotte to see." "And in exchange?" Sana asked, smoothing a napkin that didn't need smoothing. "Piece of the business," he said, soft. "And maybe a piece of your time." The room went quieter than silverware on ceramic. I felt something old and ugly rise up in me. Jealousy wearing work boots. I pinched it by the neck. "Appreciate your consistent interest," Sana said evenly. "But the answer hasn't changed." He smiled like men do when they've been told no by a woman who means it. "Doors have a way of swinging back around." "Not this one," she said, and turned away. He left, with the bouquet and his pride. I watched him through the glass until he disappeared down Main like a storm looking for a place to rain. "You always say no that pretty?" I asked. And Sana laughed once, a sound that lifted some ache and set it down softer. "Pretty's expensive," she said. "I pay in full." By 10, Amara blew in with a camera around her neck, sunglasses in her hair, and a laugh that made 2 men at the counter forget their eggs. She hugged Sana, bumped my shoulder like we'd known each other in another life, and slid into a booth backwards. "Okay," she announced, pointing her camera at me. "Mason, tell me your most chaotic decision in the last month." "Taking this job," I said. She grinned. "Honesty. Love that." She clicked a photo I wasn't ready for. "Found it. Mystery man behind the biscuit. It's giving, I've seen some things and decided to stay anyway." "Amara," Sana warned, not unkindly. "What?" "I'm working," she said, already composing the caption in her head. "Greenfield Stories. Folks love a stranger with a secret. It's America." Jordan arrived late and loud, slapped my back like we were already teammates, stole a piece of bacon off Amara's plate, and dodged her fork like he'd been practicing since birth. He tried to pick up a plate with one hand, failed, caught it with the other, and bowed to the room like a man who believed in his own recovery. "Pickup game at 2 behind the rec," he told me, when the breakfast rush finally thinned. "You hoop?" "Used to," I said. "Perfect," he said. "We're short a body, and I need someone who looks like they've done a few wrong things right." The way he said it, that laughing certainty, made something crack in me. I used to hear my own voice like that before boardrooms taught it to die sitting up. 2 o'clock, I said. "I'll be there." In the lull, I fixed the wobble on the third booth from the window, replaced the warped shelf in the pantry, reset a hinge that squealed every time Sana went to the office and back. She noticed all of it without making a big thing of noticing. That's a kindness most people don't have time for. At noon, the bank called. The sound of Nyla's ringtone was different, the kind that makes your shoulder blades tighten. She returned just as Sana set the receiver down. "Well?" Nyla asked, breath already half-held. "They want a balloon payment at the end of the quarter," Sana said, one hand on the counter, the other on her hip like that might keep her from folding. Or assess the collateral." "Collateral?" Nyla's jaw set. "They mean the building." "They mean me," Sana said softly. Nyla's eyes flicked to me, and away like she didn't want to show a stranger where her house was thin. "I'll call Aunt Zadie," she said. "If anyone can shake a loan officer, it's the woman who got all three of us through calculus." "Leave Zadie out of this until we have to," Sana said, but she was already reaching for her phone. I went to the back under the pretense of measuring a shelf and called a number I hadn't dialed in weeks. Langston picked up on the second ring because Langston always had. "Where the hell are you, Malik?" he said, lawyerly even when he cussed. "The board wants your head, Amaya wants your signature, and I want to retire before we both grow moss." "I need a favor," I said. "Quiet." He sighed the sigh of a man who'd gone to school to tell rich men no, and somehow kept telling me yes. "Go." "I need a bridge loan moved to a credit union with a conscience. Low interest, long runway. And I need it processed through a donor-advised fund so it doesn't ping my name. Recipient is a cafe in Greenfield, North Carolina. I'll send the details." "Is this about her?" he asked, and the way he said her told me he knew. "It's about us," I said. He was silent for a long beat. "Text me the numbers. I'll call in a favor with the pastor, who baptized my ex-wife and saved my taxes in the same month." "Langston, don't thank me," he said. "Fix your life." I hung up and stared at the crooked shadow the shelf cast on the wall. Fix your life. As if it were that simple. As if I hadn't broken it with both hands. At 2, the sun hit hard, and the asphalt behind the rec center loosened its shoulders. A chain-link fence, 2 bent rims, the sweet thud of a ball hitting a backboard that had seen better summers. Jordan tossed me a gray shirt. "House rules," he said. "Skins and sins." "I'm too old to be both," I said. "You'll be fine," he grinned. And the first game started with the kind of trash talk that buys love on credit. I hadn't played in years, not like this. No trainers, no cameras, no charity game with men who didn't want to sweat. Just heat, dust, and gravity, reminding you she could be kind when she felt like it. I missed my first layup, hit a jumper that felt like a song I used to know all the words to, took a knee to the thigh, and remembered why surgeons make money. "Hey," Jordan said during a water break, nodding at the scar on my right knee. "Surgery?" "College," I lied, the kind of lie that takes the shape of a memory if you say it soft enough. He spun the ball on one finger. "You move. Like somebody coached, you mean?" "Maybe," I said. "You ain't from here," he said, not a question. "Nope. You came for work. And something else." I looked at him over the rim of my water bottle. "Such as?" "People don't come to Greenfield to get rich," he said. "They come to remember who they were before the money, or who they meant to be." He turned and nailed a 3, like it didn't matter if he was right. By the time we were done, sweat salted my eyes and the kind of ache I trusted set in across my shoulders. The triplets, grown, gorgeous, arrogant in the way youth is supposed to be, walked beside me back toward the cafe without realizing my steps matched theirs like a shadow. Amara peeled off toward the thrift store because she couldn't pass a rack without rescuing at least one jacket with a shoulder pad problem. Nyla peeled off toward the bank because she believed in calling men who hid behind desks and asking them why their pens kept running out of ink when her family's name came up. Jordan headed back to help close. I detoured through the antiques side, the part of the cafe that held other people's histories hostage. That's when I saw it. An old oak register desk with a false bottom someone hadn't bothered screwing back all the way. I tugged. A thin ledger slid out, rubber-banded and private. "Don't," I told myself, already opening it. The handwriting was neat, a school teacher's discipline. Payments, dates, notations in a margin. Loan from EVR. Consolidated. Interest jumped again. No response from Whitaker. Cash from friend returned. E.V. Everett Vale. Ruthless, charming, the kind of investor who named his boats after storms and liked to watch people run. He tried to get into Carter Enterprises 3 years ago, wearing a smile and carrying a bottle of whiskey 10 years older than me. I told him I'd amputate a limb before I'd take his money. He'd laughed, said, "Let me know when you tire of bleeding." I felt my jaw set and a headache start in a place my father would have called unholy, if Everett had his teeth in Santa's mortgage. That explained Dorian's confidence and Nyla's fury. It also meant Everett would be circling, waiting for something soft to bite. "Find anything you like?" a voice said behind me. I slid the ledger closed without flinching and turned. A woman in a mustard dress and an attitude leaned against the doorframe. She was late 50s, expensive glasses, and the kind of smile you pull out when you want to look harmless and are anything but. "Depends what you're selling," I said. She extended a hand. "Zadie Brooks, sister. Unofficial board of trustees." I shook it. "Mason. You move quiet," she said. "Men who move quiet are either dangerous or thoughtful." "Both," I said, before I could lie. She laughed once. "You're cute. You make coffee? Or just trouble?" "Shelves," I said. "And doors." "Good," she said, gaze making notes no one else would read. "Keep fixing things. This place needs a man who knows what a hinge is for." When she was gone, I slipped the ledger back exactly where I'd found it and went looking for oxygen. The evening rush came at 6 like rain. I bussed tables and carried plates and learned the song of the espresso machine so I could dance to it. Sana moved through the room with that soft authority people trust even when they shouldn't. She stopped trouble before it knew its own name. Refilled coffee before the second sip. Remembered that Mr. Ellis takes lemon in his tea even though he always says he doesn't. "Sit," she told me after the last couple left and the door locked with a click. "You worked like you owned the place." "Maybe I like it here," I said. "Maybe," she said, and poured herself a glass of water like the day had burned her tongue, and this was the only thing that knew how to be kind to it. Nyla returned with news and a headache. "Whitaker's out till Monday," she said, dropping her portfolio like it had crimes in it. I left him a voicemail that was equal parts scripture and threat. "Zadie came by," Santa said. "I know," Nyla said. "She texted me 3 chapters and a parable." Amara uploaded a post. "Mystery Mason is performing jawline and humility at Brooks Cafe," she narrated, reading her caption aloud with a grin. "Come for the biscuits, stay for the riddles." "Delete that," Nyla said. "No," Sana said at the same time. They looked at each other and had an entire conversation with eyebrows. "You okay?" I asked Sana when they went to the back to argue softly like they'd invented it. She didn't answer right away. The lights over the counter turned the gold flecks in her irises into lit windows. "I'm tired," she said finally. "And trying not to be scared where my kids can see it." I nodded. "Fear's loud." She said. "You know anything about scary men with soft hands?" "Too much," I said. "Everett's been calling again," she said, saying his name like a warning to herself. "Offering to fix what the bank broke. Don't take his money." "Do I look like a woman who falls for candy?" she asked, a small smile curving one corner of her mouth. "No," I said. "You look like the woman who invented saying no." She studied me for a breath that lasted longer than it had a right to. "Who are you, Mason?" I opened my mouth and shut it. "A man who knows how to fix a hinge," I said. "And what else?" she asked. "Who to call when a door won't open," I said, and it was both a promise and a confession I didn't mean to make out loud. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face changed in a way it hadn't all day. "What?" I asked. "Dorian," she said. He texted a picture. She turned the screen. It was the outside of the cafe shot from across the street. A silhouette stood in the reflection. Mine. The caption read, "Funny how folks passing through always find a reason to stay." My blood cooled slow. "You tell him anything about me?" I asked, easy as I could. "No," she said. I protect my people, even the ones I can't explain. The door knocked once, twice, a rhythm that sounded like a dare. Sana didn't move. "We're closed," she called. "Knock, knock, knock." I stepped forward before she could. "I'll get it." I cracked the door. Dorian stood there in a jacket he wanted to be taken seriously and cologne he wanted to be remembered by. He smiled over my shoulder at Sana like I'd opened his house by mistake. "We're closed," I said. He looked at me, then at the closed sign, then at Sana. "Funny how signs don't apply when a man can help," he said, and tried to shoulder past me. I shifted. Not a threat, a decision. "Come back tomorrow," I said. He looked down at my hand on the door, then up at my face. "You from around here, Mason?" "No," I said. "Then you don't know how we do things," he said. Softness sharpened to a point. "I learned fast," I said. Sana appeared behind me like a shield I didn't deserve. "Dorian, please," she said. "Not tonight." Something in him softened at her voice and then hardened when he remembered I was there to witness it. "Tomorrow," he said instead, and smiled a goodbye at her that wasn't for her. "We'll talk loans, and men who fix doors that don't belong to them." He left a scent and a promise I didn't plan to keep. I closed the door and locked it. Sana leaned on the counter with both hands like the wood was the only steady thing left in town. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For standing there," she said. "Sometimes the kindest thing a man can do is be in the way." I wanted to ask her 100 things and say 1,000 I wasn't ready to own. Instead, I picked up a rag and wiped a clean counter like it needed witnessing. When I finally walked back to the rented room over Zadie's bookstore, my phone was a lit prayer. Messages from Amaya, from Langston, from a board member who liked to threaten. I scrolled past them until I hit the one that mattered. "Transfer queued," Langston had texted. "Money will hit by Friday. Recipient will think it's Providence." I stared at the word until it blurred. Providence. I'd relied on money and muscle for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to ask for mercy. A second message arrived while I watched the town inhale, then exhale its quiet. Unknown number. Picture of the cafe at dawn. Empty street. My shadow in the glass. The text was simple. "You can't hide in a town that knows its own reflection." Everett, I thought. Or someone who spelled like him. I powered the phone down and set it face down on the dresser. The room smelled like dust and old paper. Below my window, Zadie sang low to herself while she closed her shop. A hymn, or a threat dressed in scripture. I lay back on a bed that made more noise than a confession, and closed my eyes. For the first time in 7 years, sleep came like something that trusted me to hold it without breaking it. In the morning, I would fix the hinge on the back door, call Langston with a number I hadn't wanted to say out loud, and pretend I didn't catch Jordan watching me the way sons watch men they're not ready to claim yet. In the morning, I would act like a poor man who knew his way around a crowbar. Tonight, I let myself think a dangerous thought. If I'd been brave enough to stay, this could have been my life. The next morning started before sunrise. Malik stood outside Brooks' Cafe, key in hand, watching the town yawn itself awake. The street smelled of rain on hot asphalt and baked bread from the bakery down the block. Inside, the silence felt like a secret waiting to be told. He set down his toolbox and began tightening the back door hinge he'd promised to fix. He liked the work, the rhythm, the focus, the way a small turn could make something close smooth again. If only people worked that way. The door creaked once more before settling into place. A small victory. Didn't think billionaires knew how to use a screwdriver. The voice behind him was calm, almost amused. Malik froze, turned slowly. Jordan stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee, one extended toward him. "What did you call me?" Malik asked, keeping his tone even. "Billionaire." Jordan smirked. "Relax, I'm kidding." You just look like the kind of man who used to wear suits. Malik forced a chuckle, taking the cup. Nah. Closest I got was wearing a tie once to a wedding. Yours? Someone else's. Jordan nodded, sipping. Figures. He studied Malik for a moment, then said, Mom likes you. She hasn't said it, but I can tell. Malik swallowed the burn of coffee wrong and coughed. What makes you say that? Because she didn't throw you out yet, Jordan said. And around here, that's love. Malik laughed, short and honest. I'll take that as a compliment. They worked in silence for a while, Jordan sweeping, Malik replacing loose screws. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled by, and the smell of diesel mixed with cinnamon rolls. You play ball yesterday, like you meant it, Jordan said finally. Guess muscle memory doesn't quit easy. You played college? Malik hesitated. For a bit. Which one? Doesn't matter. Long time ago. Jordan shrugged, letting it go. You know, we could use a guy like you on our weekend team. We're in this community league, Greenfield Falcons. We're terrible, but we talk good trash. I'll think about it, Malik said. Jordan grinned. Cool. Practice is Friday. He started toward the front, then stopped. Oh, and Mason, if you ever need an extra hand, call me. My sisters think you're some mystery uncle or something, Malik blinked. They said that? Yeah. Amara swears you got old money hands. Malik almost smiled. Old money hands? Means your palms look soft but your eyes look tired, Jordan said, walking away. When he left, Malik sat down, his hand still wrapped around the coffee cup. Old money hands. The boy was closer to the truth than he knew. Sana came in around 8, her curls tied up and her energy already half spent. She looked at him, then at the fixed door. You really don't waste time, she said. Sometimes that's all a man's got. She raised a brow. You talk like a preacher and a poet had a fight, and you walked away with both their jobs. Maybe I just talk like someone who's been quiet too long. She smiled softly. Breakfast? He nodded, and she set a plate down. Grits. Eggs. Bacon that leaned toward over-crisp. He hadn't eaten breakfast made by her hands since before success had a cost. As he ate, she leaned against the counter. You ever been married? Malik froze just long enough for her to notice. Once. Didn't work out? Didn't deserve to. She looked at him for a long time. You sound like a man carrying ghosts. I am, he said quietly. Just trying to bury them right this time. Before she could respond, the cafe door opened and Nyla walked in. Heels clicking, phone in one hand, fury in the other. Mom, Everett Vale just called me, she said, dropping her purse on the counter. He said he's buying the loan from Whitaker. Sana straightened. He what? He said he's interested in ensuring stability for your family. Nyla air-quoted the words like they burned her mouth. Translation. He's circling. Sana's voice sharpened. I told that man I'm not selling him this cafe. Malik set his fork down. You know him? Know him? Nyla scoffed. He tried to date my mother. And when she said no, he started trying to buy everything she loves instead. Sana sighed, rubbing her temples. Nyla, please. No, Mama. He's not just after the building. He wants control. Nyla turned to Malik suddenly. You ever deal with men like that, Mason? Malik looked her dead in the eye. Every day of my life. Then you know they don't stop until you make them, she said, her tone fierce, protective, the same way he used to speak to shareholders. We need a plan. I'll talk to the bank, Sanier said. I'll handle Everett, Nyla insisted. And do what? Remind him we don't scare easy. Sanier sighed. You're your father's child. The room went still. Malik kept his head down, pretending to focus on his plate, but his chest ached. Yeah, Nyla said quietly. Guess so. She grabbed her purse and left, the door slamming like punctuation. Sana closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, I shouldn't have said that. Why not? Malik asked softly. Because it still hurts to say his name, she said. And because I'm tired of my kids growing up angry at a ghost. Malik's voice broke, despite himself. Maybe ghosts just want a chance to make it right. She looked up sharply. What did you say? Nothing, he said, forcing a cough. Just talking. Her gaze lingered on him, suspicious now. Something flickering in her eyes like recognition fighting to surface. But before she could speak, Amara burst through the door, camera flashing. Emergency, she shouted. Our cafe just got featured on a travel blogger's page. We're trending. Trending? Sana blinked. On Instagram. Her Brooks Cafe has 8,000 views in 2 hours. Sana smiled, relief softening her face. Well, look at God. Yeah, except they think you're running a pop-up owned by a mysterious retired chef named Mason, Amara said, waving her phone. Apparently someone posted your picture fixing that door, and the internet decided you used to cook for Beyoncé. Malik nearly choked. What? Amara grinned. Congratulations, you're viral. Sana laughed so hard she covered her face. Lord, this town. Hey, don't knock it, Amara said. People are coming just to see you now. We're booked for the weekend. Sana looked at Malik, still laughing. Guess you're officially part of the team. Chef Mason. He grinned weakly. Guess so. By midday, the cafe was packed. Locals, travelers, bloggers with ring lights. Malik worked quietly behind the counter, helping where he could, blending in while every cell in him wanted to stand out. Around 3, Jordan came back from the rec center with sweat still on his brow. Mom, he said. Some guy outside's asking about you. Says his name's Vale. Sana froze. Tell him I'm busy. He's not asking, Jordan said. He's waiting. The cafe fell quiet again. Malik's jaw tightened. You want me to? No, Sana said, her voice steady but low. Stay here. She wiped her hands and stepped outside. Malik waited a moment, then moved toward the window. Everett Vale stood on the sidewalk. Slick suit, silver watch, smile that didn't reach his eyes. The kind of man who treated charm like a weapon. I told you I'm not selling, Sana said, folding her arms. He chuckled. Not yet. But when that bank breathes down your neck, you'll change your tune. This cafe isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, he said softly. You just haven't named your price. Malik's hand curled into a fist before he could stop it. Everett leaned closer. I heard you've got new help. Mason, right? Cute alias. You always did like to collect strays. Sana's face hardened. You don't know anything about him. Oh, I know more than you think, Everett said, voice dropping. Tell your mystery man to watch his step. Greenfield small, secrets echo. Then he walked off, leaving the air colder than before. Sana came back inside, breathing hard. Malik stepped toward her. You all right? She nodded, though her hands shook. He's bluffing. He always bluffs. Malik wanted to tell her everything then. Who he was, what he'd come to fix, the bank transfer already moving behind the scenes. But the timing was wrong. Too soon. Too fragile. Instead, he said, You should let me help. You already are, she said. Just by being here. He swallowed hard. You don't even know me. She met his eyes. Then maybe that's why it feels safe. They stood in the quiet that follows fear, the kind of quiet that listens. Outside, thunder rolled low over the hills. Later, after closing, Jordan, Nyla, and Amara gathered at one of the booths. Malik stayed back, pretending to wipe tables while listening. We need to find out what Vale's planning, Nyla said. He's too confident. Maybe he's just bored, Amara said. Rich men like that get off on control. Jordan frowned. Maybe we should hire a PI. With what money? Nyla snapped. We can barely pay the electric. Santa walked over and put a hand on each of their shoulders. Enough, she said. We've survived worse. We'll survive this. Her strength filled the room like light. Malik felt it hit him in the chest, the reason he'd fallen for her once, and the reason he never stopped. When they left for the night, he stayed behind, locking up. He moved to the back office and quietly slipped an envelope into the drawer labeled mortgage. Inside was a cashier's check, anonymous, drawn from the fund Langston had transferred, enough to pay off the debt entirely. He left a note. Sometimes miracles come disguised as maintenance men. Then he walked out into the rain. Lightning flashed across the street, reflecting in puddles like mirrors. His phone buzzed. An unknown number again. You think hiding makes you humble? The message read. Wait until they see what you really are. Malik stared at the screen, thunder rumbling overhead. He deleted the text and slipped the phone into his pocket. Tomorrow, the cafe would wake to freedom they couldn't explain. But tonight, he'd earned one thing. Time. And time, he thought, was how love begins to remember your name. Morning found the cafe hushed in that soft blue light just before the first pot of coffee. Sana came in alone, humming an old Anita Baker tune under her breath, keys jangling against the glass. She liked opening by herself when she could. Something about the quiet. Let her line up the day before. The day lined her up. She tucked her purse under the counter, unlocked the small office, and flicked on the lamp. That's when she saw it. The drawer labeled mortgage wasn't flush. It sat open a sliver like a mouth about to speak. She frowned, slid into the chair, and pulled it open the rest of the way. Bills and old bank letters. And an envelope that didn't belong. No return address. Thick paper. Her name on the front in an unfamiliar, careful hand. She was a woman who did not rush. She broke the seal slowly and lifted out a cashier's check so heavy it felt unreal. Her breath left her body like a door slamming in an empty house. The amount was exact down to the cent. Every dollar of the debt that had been strangling her sleep. Her first reaction was relief so strong it scared her. Her second was suspicion. Nothing so perfectly timed arrives without hands. Inside the envelope, a folded note. Sometimes miracles come disguised as maintenance men. She read it twice, set it down, and read it again. A laugh caught in her throat and died on the way out. She wasn't stupid. She had worked all her life for every clean line and paid bill. Men had offered help before and pulled it back with a hook in it later. Prayer can hand you a rope or a knot. You learn the difference by touch. She stood, stared at the check, then at the office door like the hall outside could answer. Mason. His face rose without permission. The gaze that never pushed, the silence that felt like listening, the hands she'd wanted to believe in. Maintenance men don't drop cashier's checks the size of redemption into drawers. Unless they aren't what they say. Her phone buzzed on the desk. You up? Came Nyla's text. I'm bringing muffins. And an attitude. Sana typed back. Count to 10 before you aim that attitude at me. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. She put the check back in the envelope, slid both and the note under the stack of invoices, and closed the drawer. The office air felt different now. Like she wasn't alone in it. She brewed the first pot and let the smell do what it does, round the edges off the morning. The bell over the door tinkled. Amara came in with a camera bag and a scarf tied like a statement. What you doing here so early? She asked, then caught her mother's face. What? Help me plate those croissants, Sana said, not trusting her voice yet. Amara narrowed her eyes, did as asked, and waited. Sana handed her the tray. Put these out, then come back and close the door. When it was shut, Sana reached into the drawer and laid the envelope and note on the desk like evidence at a kitchen table. Amara's eyes went wide. Is that what I think it is? It is. From who? That's the question I'm trying not to answer too quick. Sana tapped the note. Read it. Amara did and whistled low. Mom? Mason? Sana didn't answer. She pressed her palms flat on the desk to stop them trembling. What I know is this. Somebody who knows what we owe and what Whitaker likes to do when women owe it decided to cut the devil off at the door. That doesn't come from a stranger on a bus. Amara leaned back, mind already building plots. If it's Mason, then he... Okay. So, the man isn't what he said. I don't know what he said. Sana heard how defensive she sounded and hated it. Mom, Amara said softly. You know his shoes cost more than our oven. Sana almost smiled. He's been careful. Careful don't erase shiny leather. Amara's brain clicked over into protective. We gotta ask him, like adults. Straight. I will, Sana said. After I put this in a bank account where Everett Vale can't sniff it and call it a gift with strings. Keisha, Amara said immediately. Call Keisha first. Keisha West had grown up 3 blocks over and argued in court, like she was still standing on her grandmother's porch. Sana pulled her phone and hit the contact. It rang twice before Keisha answered, voice thick with mourning. If this isn't about your loan, I'm hanging up. It's about my loan. Go on, Sana told her. Keisha was quiet a beat. Bring that check to me before you bring it to anybody else. You think I can't just... I think Everett is a man who turns kindness into leverage. You don't let a snake call anything a gift. Noon. My office. Keisha paused. And Sana? Don't tell the kids yet. I already told Amara, Sana said. She was in the room. Then tie her phone to a chair. I'll see you at 12. The bell chimed again. Nyla walked in with a bag and a jaw set like stubborn. She looked at her mother's face, then at Amara's, and stopped mid-stride. What happened? Help me roll silverware, Sana said. And for once, do it without a fight. By 10, the cafe was a steady hum. Malik came in through the alley, shaking rain off his cap. He moved toward the back like he always did, not expecting welcome, just wanting useful. Sana felt him before she saw him and had to curb the instinct to reach for him, to hold up the note and say, "Tell me who you are." Instead, she kept her voice even. "Morning, Mason." He met her eyes. Something flickered there. A question, a worry, a prayer. "You good?" "Busy," she said. "You?" "Always." She handed him a tray. "Take these to table 6 and don't you dare flirt with the lady in the blue dress." "Which one is she?" he asked, scanning. "The one who thinks a smile is a contract. I'm not bartering you today." He laughed and walked out. Sana watched him cross the room. There was a grace in him that didn't come from kitchens. You learn posture like that in rooms where your name is carved on something heavy. She turned away before longing could trace her mouth. By 11:30, the lunch crowd swelled. Nyla hustled plates. Amara charmed tourists on camera. Jordan slid behind the espresso machine and turned into a barista like a magician turning scarves into doves. At 11:50, Sana untied her apron and handed the keys to Nyla. "I'm going to see Keisha," she said. "Nobody panic." "Should we?" Nyla asked. "If you have to ask, the answer's no." She picked up her tote, slid the envelope inside, and walked out into a sky-threatening rain. Keisha's office sat above a florist that always smelled like apologies. Keisha looked like the kind of woman lies did not approach willingly. "Let me see it," she said. "No sugar." Sana placed the check and the note on her desk. Keisha read, leaned back, and studied Sana's face. "You know who wrote that. I know who it sounds like. And you're wondering if you should be mad or grateful." Sana exhaled. Both looked the same from the outside. Keisha tapped the check. "This can be deposited into an escrow account I manage. We'll use it to pay off the mortgage directly. That way, no one can claim it went into your pocket as a gift that creates obligation. You think Everett would try that? I think Everett doesn't sleep as much as he pretends, Keisha said. And I think men who think they own small towns hate surprises. We'll make this clean. But first, who is Mason? Sana held Keisha's gaze. He's a man who showed up when the door was about to fall off. That answers nothing. Maybe that's all I've got. Sana's voice went thin. Maybe that's all I can afford. Keisha's look softened. If he did this to save you and not to own you, that's one thing. If he did this as an apology wrapped in a lie, that's another. Either way, you find out before you let your heart sign anything. Sana nodded. I will. Keisha made 2 phone calls that sounded like small wars. Papers were printed, signed. The check disappeared into a system Everett Vale did not control. Sana left with a receipt, and a weight shifted. Not gone, but moved somewhere she could carry. When she pushed open the cafe door again, the room popped with afternoon rush. Malik stood at the register being charming against his will. A couple with matching sunglasses asked him where he was originally from. He smiled politely and said, right here for now, slid them their change, and stepped back when he saw Sana. You okay? He asked again, quieter this time. Come with me, she said. He followed her into the office. She shut the door, turned, and put both hands on the back of the chair to steady herself. He stood in the small space like a too-tall secret. You put money in my drawer, she said. Not a question. He didn't lie. His eyes closed for a second like a man about to confess. Yes. She waited for the rest. When it didn't come, she lifted the note. You called yourself a miracle. I called maintenance men miracles, he said, voice tired. I've been one. I've needed one. You know exactly how much I owed. I did. How? He held her gaze and did the hardest thing a proud man can do. He told the truth. Because I asked. You asked who? The bank. Sana blinked. The bank doesn't hand out that information. They do when they're told their debt is about to be purchased anonymously and paid in full, he said softly. I didn't want to give Everett time to move. The room tilted. You know Everett? I know his kind. What kind is that? The kind that takes and calls it a favor. Silence stretched between them until it hummed. She crossed her arms. Who are you, Mason? He swallowed, the name catching. He almost said it. Almost let Malik out into the light. But the timing still felt like a match over dry leaves. One spark and everything burns wrong. He took a breath that sounded like surrender. I'm a man who owes you. For what? For leaving. For showing up late. For... He stopped himself before he brought the past into the room like smoke. For not asking how you were sooner than this. She stared at him until he wanted to look away and refused. I can't accept money from a mystery. So I moved it where the mystery can't touch it. Keisha handled it. If this was clean, it stays clean. If it wasn't, it was. Then the cafe is safe. He nodded. For now. For now, she repeated and sat down because her legs were not listening. You think I should say thank you, she said, more to the window than to him. And I will. But I won't say it. Like I'm weak. I'd never ask you to. Good, she said, and finally looked back at him. Because I'm not. He smiled then, the real one she hadn't seen since they were young and the world still believed in them. It hit her, square in the chest. She stood too fast. We're done for now, she said. Customers. They opened the door and stepped back into the noise like nothing had tilted. Out on Greenfield's main drag, a black sedan idled 2 storefronts down. Everett sat behind the wheel, watching the cafe through tinted glass. His phone vibrated. He glanced down at the text from bank manager Hollis. Unusual activity. Loan paid via third-party escrow. Not Vale. Will advise. Everett's jaw tightened. He dialed. Whitaker, he said when the other man answered. You sold the debt. To an escrow account, Whitaker said, bored. Money's money. Whose? Doesn't matter now. You want another angle? Try code enforcement. Your friend's grease trap paperwork been updated? Everett smiled without humor. That's the thing about small towns, he said. The rules are personal. He hung up and sent a different text. Inspect Monday. Surprise. He stared at the cafe door like it had talked back. By sunset, the sky bruised purple. The last table left lingering and laughing. Jordan flipped chairs. Amara uploaded an end-of-day reel with a song that made heartbreak sound like a good idea. Nyla closed the register and counted twice like she always did when she felt watched. Sana tied on her nightscarf and stepped into the alley to breathe. Malik was there already, leaning against the brick, eyes on the slice of sky visible between buildings. You all right? He asked for the third time that day. You going to keep asking that until I say no? She said, a smile tugging despite her mood. Probably. She stood beside him, not touching. The alley hummed with the quiet of things that weren't saying their names. She could smell his soap, a clean, uncomplicated scent that made her think of cotton drying on a line. He cleared his throat. Jordan invited me to practice Friday. You gonna go? She asked. Maybe. He hesitated. Do you want me to? She considered the question under the question. I want you to do what keeps you honest, she said, whatever that is. What if that's staying? He asked, not looking at her. Then stay, she said, looking straight ahead. They let that sit between them long enough to feel the weight and the promise of it. Back inside, her phone buzzed with a message from Keisha. It's done. The deed's clear. Sleep if you can. Also, watch your back. Men like Vale don't sulk. They scheme. Sana put the phone in her apron and went to switch off the lights. As she reached for the last switch, Malik's phone vibrated in his pocket. He glanced at the screen, and his whole face changed for a fraction of a second before he got control of it. You need to take that? She asked. No, he said, too fast. She raised a brow. You sure? He nodded and slid the phone back. She didn't press. He didn't volunteer. They said goodnight like normal, which is to say they lingered too long at the door and pretended they had somewhere to be. When the cafe went dark, Malik turned left instead of right and cut down the side street toward the motel, where he'd been sleeping, one night at a time. A figure stepped out of the shadow between the laundromat and the pawn shop. Tall, broad, familiar in the way a mirror is familiar. Langston, Malik said, breath leaving his chest, as exasperation and gratitude fought it out. You move like a bill collector. Langston Hall didn't smile. I texted. Twice. I saw. You ignored. I postponed. Langston's eyes cut to the cafe. How'd it go? She found it, Malik said. She know it's you? Not yet. Langston made a noise low in his throat. You enjoy walking across glass? I deserve to, Malik said. Langston stepped closer. You could tell her. Right now. End this game you think is penance. It's not a game, Malik said. It's timing. Timing is a coward's word when truth is available. Malik bristled. She deserves to process one bomb at a time. Debt gone. That's the first mercy. And the second? Isn't yours to deliver, Malik said. And it isn't mine to force. Langston studied him, then looked past him at the motel sign buzzing like a mosquito. I got you a better place, he said finally. On the edge of town. Nobody asks questions. I'm fine there. You're not. Malik sighed. Send me the address. Langston nodded. And Malik? What? Everett's moving on code. He's calling in favors with county. Monday, you'll have a man with a clipboard pretending to be Justice. I'll be there, Malik said. Where? Langston asked. At her side, or in the shadows like contrition with a hat? Malik didn't answer. Langston clapped his shoulder hard enough to be brother and warning in one hit, then vanished the way expensive ghosts do. Malik walked on. Inside his pocket, the phone vibrated again. A different number this time. The message was 2 words that turned the night colder. Hello, Dad. He stopped dead on the sidewalk, a streetlight buzzing overhead like a bad idea. He knew without opening it who had sent it. Not a child. Not a boy. A man. Grown now. The past didn't stay small out of kindness. He leaned against the lamppost and closed his eyes. He typed. Deleted. Typed again. Then, tomorrow? Cafe. Noon. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Okay, came the reply. Name withheld. As if either of them needed it. He walked the last block to the motel, thinking of all the ways love returns. Angry, stubborn, uninvited, still wanting to be fed. He unlocked the door to his room and stared at the bedspread printed with triangles like warning signs. He sat on the edge and let the weight of the day finally land. Across town, Everett Vale poured himself a drink he didn't taste and phoned a man who wore a county badge on weekdays and a favor ledger on weekends. Monday, Everett said. Make it uncomfortable. Always do, the man replied. At the cafe, Sana lay awake, not sleeping anyway, replaying the look in Mason's eyes when she said stay. She pressed her hand to the place under her ribs that ached since she was 19 and fell in love with a man who taught her that ache could mean hope. She had laughed at herself for years over that. Tonight, she did not laugh. The rain started up after midnight, steady, unshowy, washing salt from sidewalks and shade from memories. In one room at the motel, a man practiced the truth he would have to say. In one bed across town, a woman rewrote a prayer she thought she was done praying. In a slick office, a rival sharpened a rule book into a knife. In a city far enough to pretend it wasn't connected, a son stared at the word Dad on his phone and tried to remember what it felt like to mean it. The morning would bring paperwork and inspectors and the wrong kind of attention. But for now, Greenfield listened to the rain. Because sometimes the only way to hear your own name is to let something louder talk until it runs out of breath. Morning hit hard and gray, the kind that wakes you with no warning. The cafe smelled of rain and cinnamon, and the regulars were already trickling in by 7. Sana moved slower than usual, her eyes softer, voice quieter. She hadn't slept much, and it showed. Malik, still Mason to everyone else, was already there when she arrived. Sleeves rolled, shirt damp from carrying supplies in from the alley. He had this habit of making work look like repentance, and maybe it was. Morning, he said, glancing up. Morning, she replied, tying her apron. You beat me here. Couldn't sleep. Then you fit right in, she said. Before either could say more, the bell over the door chimed and a young man stepped in. Late 20s, caramel skin, eyes that matched his mother's more than he'd admit. Dressed simple, clean. Jeans, black hoodie, no pretense. He hesitated for half a second before saying, Hey. Sana smiled automatically. Hey there. You dining in? The young man's gaze flicked past her, to Malik. Their eyes met, and everything went still. The cafe sounds dulled. The ceiling fan ticked like a second hand holding its breath. Malik's voice came out low. Caleb! Sana turned slowly toward him, confusion, and something else tightening her face. You know him. Malik nodded once, barely. Yeah, I do. Caleb walked closer, each step heavy with years neither of them had named out loud. You said, noon. I know, Malik said. I'm early too. Sana looked between them. Somebody want to tell me what's going on here? Sana's question hung in the air like smoke that refused to fade. Caleb looked at her. Really looked. and for a split second, she saw something familiar in his face. The shape of his eyes. The way his mouth tightened when he was trying not to feel. "Who are you?" she asked, voice careful but trembling around the edges. Caleb hesitated. "Ma'am, I didn't mean to just walk in here like this. I just needed to see him." Her gaze shot to Malik. "See who?" "Mason." Malik swallowed hard. That name, his borrowed name, suddenly too heavy to carry. "Sana," he started, but his throat locked up. "Don't sana me," she snapped, stepping closer. "You've been walking into my business, my life, every day for weeks, with a fake name and a mystery paycheck. And now somebody walks in here calling you Dad?" The cafe went silent. Even the coffee machine hissed like it was trying to eavesdrop. Caleb clenched his fists, fighting the tremor in his voice. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just needed to know if you were real. If you were even still alive." Sana blinked. "Alive? What is he talking about?" Malik finally exhaled and said it. The truth he'd been burying under guilt for a decade. "He's my son, Sana." The room tilted. "Your what?" "My son," he repeated, quieter this time. "From before I left Atlanta. Before everything." Amara froze near the pastry counter, holding a plate mid-air. Nyla dropped her towel on the floor. Even Jordan, who rarely reacted to anything, stepped out from behind the espresso machine, eyes wide. Sanaa's voice came out as a whisper. "You have a son? And you've been here lying to me like some ghost out of a soap opera?" Malik tried to step closer. "Please, let me explain." "No." Her hand came up like a wall. "You had weeks. Weeks. You could have said something. Anything. Instead, you played house in my cafe like some man trying on honesty for fun." Caleb's eyes darted between them, guilt in every movement. "He didn't plan this. I just found him. I'd been looking for him for years. I didn't even think you'd be here." Sanaa's heart pounded in her chest. "And who told you to come here, huh? Because this right here feels orchestrated." Caleb's voice cracked. "Nobody told me. I found him through public records. He wasn't hiding well." Malik flinched. "Enough, Caleb." "No, Dad." Caleb's tone hardened. "You don't get to enough me. You don't get to vanish for half my life and then tell me when to shut up." "Watch your tone," Malik warned quietly. Sanaa cut in, sharp. "Both of you, stop. I don't care what unfinished drama you dragged in here, but not in front of my staff, not in my cafe." Caleb shook his head. "Your cafe. Yeah, that fits. You always build something good just so he can tear it down, don't you?" Sana froze, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean by that?" Caleb hesitated, realizing he'd said too much. Malik's eyes turned to fire. "Caleb! Don't!" But it was too late. Caleb's voice broke open like a wound. "You think he's just some poor mechanic who showed up out of nowhere? He's the reason you almost lost this cafe in the first place. He's Everett Vale's partner." The room went dead silent. Even the ceiling fan stopped spinning, or maybe it just felt that way. Sana's mouth went dry. "What did you just say?" Malik tried to speak, but Caleb stepped forward, fury overtaking fear. "Dad, you lied to me. To her. To everyone. You funded that man's loans years ago when you were trying to build your empire, and now you come back here pretending you're some savior? You're no better than him." Sana's hands shook. "Tell me he's lying," she said, her voice low, dangerous. Malik didn't answer fast enough. "Tell me!" she shouted, the sound echoing off the cafe walls. He lowered his head. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," she demanded, tears brimming. "I didn't know Vale was the one threatening you until I got back here," Malik said, desperation creeping into his voice. I sold my half of that business years ago, but my name was still on the paperwork. By the time I found out what he was doing to this town, it was too late. I came back to fix it. By lying to me? She whispered. By pretending to be poor? You could have just told me who you were. I would have listened. No, you wouldn't have, he said. Not after what he did to you. Not after what I did by accident. You don't get to decide what I would have done, she snapped. You just decided for me like every other man who ever thought he knew better. Caleb looked at her, then at his father, and said quietly, Maybe both of you need to decide if you're fixing something or breaking it again. He walked out before either of them could stop him. The bell over the door ringing sharp and final. Cindy pressed her palms into the counter to steady herself. You need to go, she whispered. Cindy, go, she repeated, stronger this time. You've done enough saving for one lifetime. Malik hesitated. His throat moved like he was trying to swallow a truth that wouldn't fit. I didn't come back to hurt you. I came back because I never stopped. Don't, she said sharply. Don't turn this into a confession. Go. He turned, walked out slow, shoulders heavy. The door closed behind him, and for a long moment, nobody moved. Then Nyla exhaled shakily. Well, she said, half whisper. Guess we're skipping the soap opera rerun today. Amara looked at her mother, eyes wet but fierce. You okay? Sana wiped at her tears, forcing a smile. I'm fine, baby. But she wasn't. Because out on the street, under that gray Carolina sky, Malik stopped at the corner, leaned against a lamppost, and looked back at the cafe window. Through the glass, he could see her silhouette. Strong, beautiful, broken. And he realized the one thing money and apologies couldn't buy back was trust. And the man who had once owned half the town now stood outside of it. A stranger with a name that meant nothing, watching the only thing that had ever felt real slip through his hands again. Rain returned that night, heavy and unrelenting, like the sky was tired of keeping secrets too. The streets of Durham glistened under the streetlights, and every sound outside Sana's cafe carried an echo that made her nerves hum. She had locked up early, claiming exhaustion, but the truth was, she couldn't stand the quiet. The clock ticked too loudly. The smell of Malik's cologne still lingered faintly in the air, cedarwood and storm, and it made her chest ache. She tried to distract herself by scrubbing the espresso machine for the third time, when headlights flashed through the rain-streaked window. A sleek black car rolled to a stop right in front. Not Malik's beat-up truck. Something far newer. Darker. Expensive. A man stepped out. Tall. Sharp suit. Smile like a blade. Sana froze. She'd seen that smile before. Years ago, when she'd begged a banker to spare her cafe after her ex-husband's debts swallowed everything around them. Everett Vale. The man who had once promised to help her get back on her feet, while slowly tightening the noose around her business. He walked in like he owned the oxygen. Evening, Ms. Hill, he said smoothly, rainwater dripping off his coat. Place still smells like sugar and bad decisions? Sana's spine stiffened. What do you want, Everett? He smiled wider. You always did cut right to it. I respect that. I came to check on an old investment. You don't own this place anymore, she said, voice sharp. You sold your interest years ago. Ah, but the paperwork was never properly finalized, he said casually, pulling a folder from his coat pocket and laying it on the counter. Seems your new business partner. What's his name again? Mason? Malik? Left a few things unsigned. Sana's heart lurched. You're lying. Everett tilted his head. Am I? Or is it that your mystery man wasn't quite the hero you thought? She grabbed the folder, flipping through it with trembling hands. And there it was. Malik's signature. His real one, next to Everett's on old corporate documents that tied them both to a failed real estate deal. Her stomach turned. You knew. I always know, Everett said smoothly. I warned him once that coming back here would stir up ghosts. He never listens. That's his problem. Heart too big, ego bigger. She snapped the folder shut. Why are you here, Everett? He leaned closer, his cologne sharp and invasive. Because I heard he's planning to fix things, that he's been hanging around you again. And if there's one thing Malik King doesn't understand, it's that fixing things always costs somebody something. The way he said Malik's full name hit her like a blow. You're just here to threaten me. He smiled. No, darling. I'm here to remind you that when men like Malik make promises, it's always women like you who end up paying the bill. She slammed the counter so hard, the espresso cups rattled. Get out of my cafe. Everett chuckled low. You sure you can afford to throw me out? Or maybe you'd rather I finish what he started. Sell this block, take your legacy, and remind you who really runs the city. Before she could answer, the door swung open. Malik stood there, soaked from the rain, jaw set, eyes full of thunder. You should have stayed gone. Everett. Sana's pulse jumped. The two men stared at each other like a history of betrayal had just walked into the same room. Everett's grin didn't falter. Well, if it isn't the prodigal businessman, you finally stopped playing blue-collar messiah long enough to face me? Malik stepped closer. You're trespassing. On a property we built? Everett taunted. Don't flatter yourself. You built an empire on other people's backs, Malik said, voice low. Dangerous. And now you're circling what's left of it like a vulture, Everett chuckled. You're still dramatic. But you forgot something. You're not the hero in this story. You're the man who disappeared when it mattered. Sania's breath caught. Enough! Both men turned to her. She stood behind the counter, fists clenched, eyes wet but fierce. I've had enough of rich men with guilt complexes trying to fix their mistakes with words. This cafe survived because I built it, not because of either of you. So if you've got something to settle, do it outside. Everett smirked. Oh, she's still fire. He turned toward the door, buttoning his coat. You always did have good taste, Malik. Malik's voice was quiet, but sharp as a knife. Touch her business again, and I'll burn every contract you ever forged. Everett paused at the door, glanced back with that infuriating half-smile. You can't burn paper that's already been scanned into the cloud. Then he was gone. Into the rain, leaving silence behind him like smoke. Sana pressed her palms to the counter, shaking. You brought that man back into my life. I didn't mean to, Malik said, voice heavy. He must have followed me here. I told you I came to make things right. Then why does everything fall apart when you show up? She whispered. He stepped closer, eyes searching hers. Because I don't know how to stop wanting to fix what I broke. She shook her head. You're not fixing anything, Malik. You're reopening wounds that never healed. He reached for her hand. Then tell me how to stop. Her voice trembled, low and fierce. You leave. That's how. He froze. She looked up at him, tears glinting in her lashes. I can't keep bleeding for your redemption arc. Go find your peace somewhere else. Malik stood there for a long, aching moment. Then he nodded once, slowly, like a man accepting a sentence. If that's what you want. It's what I need, she said. He turned to go. But before he could step outside, she said softly, And Malik? He paused. She swallowed. If you ever really loved me, don't come back until you're ready to prove it. The rain swallowed him whole as he stepped into the night, and somewhere in the darkness, Everett Vale lit a cigarette under a flickering streetlight, watching Malik's shadow fade. Poor fool, he murmured, smoke curling in the air. You still don't understand. Love isn't the opposite of power. It's the price of it. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. It came down in slow, heavy drops that drummed against the cafe windows like a warning. Sana sat alone at one of the corner tables, a mug of untouched coffee going cold in her hands. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Malik's face in that last moment, wet from the storm, eyes full of something he couldn't say. The bell over the door jingled softly. She didn't look up. "Closed," she murmured. A woman's voice answered. "Didn't come for coffee." Sana froze. The voice was calm, steady, but it carried the same weight Malik's did when he was serious. She looked up. A woman stood there, mid-20s, tall brown skin glowing even under the gray light, hair pulled into a tight bun. Her coat was soaked through. She had Malik's eyes. "Can I sit?" the woman asked. Sana's voice barely came out. "Who are you?" The stranger smiled faintly. "You already know." And she did. The recognition hit like a wave. Subtle features, the way she tilted her head, even her half-smile. Malik's eyes, Malik's posture. "You're his daughter," Sana said slowly. The woman nodded once. "Name's Alana." Sana's breath hitched. "He never said—" "Yeah," Alana cut in gently. "He doesn't say much about me. Or my brothers." Sana's chest tightened. "He told me he had a son. Not me," Alana finished with a half-smirk. "He likes to lead with the easy truth first." She shrugged off her wet coat, hanging it on the chair. "I heard about the mess last night. Everett Vale. The cafe. You." Sana blinked. How do you know all that?" "Because Everett called me," Alana said simply. "He's been trying to get me to sign over my father's old shares of Vale Development Group. Said it was unfinished family business. I came to see for myself what game he's playing." Sana's stomach turned. "Why would he call you?" "Because he thinks I hate my father enough to help him destroy him." "And do you?" Alana leaned back, crossing her arms. "I used to." The rain filled the silence between them. After a long pause, Sana asked quietly, "Why are you really here, Alana?" Alana's eyes softened. "Because I wanted to see the woman who finally made him stop running." Sana laughed bitterly. "You think that's what this is? Him stopping? He's just circling the same mistakes, dragging everyone into the spin." Alana studied her. "You love him." Sana froze. "That's not relevant." "It's always relevant," Alana said. "You think I don't recognize that tone? My mom sounded the same way before he left. Angry love. It's the kind that burns slow." Sana looked away, voice low. "He lied to me, Alana. He came back with a fake name. A fake story. Everything fake just to stand next to me. That's not love. That's manipulation with a heartbeat." Alana tilted her head. "Or maybe it's a man who never learned how to be forgiven." The words sank deep, heavier than any insult. Sana whispered, "You sound like him." "I'm his daughter," Alana said simply. "And I came here because Everett's not done. He's planning to use that old partnership contract to reopen your cafe's debt claim. He wants the property. All of it." Sana's eyes widened. "That's impossible. The debt was settled years ago." "Not on paper," Alana said, pulling out a folder from her bag. "He found a loophole. Legally, the loan was never closed. He's going to move on it within a week." Sana's pulse quickened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if you think Malik lied to you before, Everett will make that look like a children's book. You need to be ready." "I don't have that kind of money." "Then you'd better find something more valuable than money," Alana said quietly. The door opened again. Malik stood in the doorway, drenched from the rain. His eyes locking instantly on Alana. "Alana," he said, stunned. She didn't flinch. "Hey, Dad." The word hit the air like a thunderclap. He took a cautious step forward. "You shouldn't be here." She arched an eyebrow. "Neither should you." But here we are. Sana stood between them, unsure what to do. You two need to talk, she said finally, stepping back. Malik nodded slowly, still watching his daughter. I tried to find you after your mother passed. I know, Alana said. I also know you stopped looking when it got hard. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. It's true, she said evenly. You built a world out of running from guilt. You ran from her, from me, from my brothers. You even ran from your own name. And now you want to fix it by playing hero in someone else's story. I came back to fix what I broke, he said softly. Then, start with your family, Alana replied. He sighed, the fight draining from him. You sound just like your mother. Yeah, Alana said, eyes glinting. She said you'd say that. The rain pounded harder, filling the silence that followed. Finally, Sana spoke. Everett's moving against me again. Alana just told me. Malik's head snapped toward her. What? She said the cafe debt wasn't closed. He's planning to take it back. Malik ran a hand over his face. That son of a... He stopped himself, exhaled hard. Okay, listen. I can fix this. Alana laughed coldly. Of course you can. That's always the line, right? You can fix it. Alana, he said carefully. Please. No, she said, stepping closer. You want to fix things? Start by admitting you can't control everything. Start by admitting you broke us before you tried to save anyone else. He looked at her, eyes wet. You think I don't know that? Then stop pretending this cafe is your redemption story, she said. It's hers. Sana swallowed hard, realizing what Alana meant. Malik turned to Sana. She's right. You built this place. You deserve to keep it. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out an envelope, thick, sealed. This covers every debt Everett can throw at you. Legally, clean. Sana stared at it. Where did this come from? Offshore accounts, he said. Money I never wanted to use again. But you're worth more than pride. She hesitated. Why are you doing this? He stepped closer. Because love without accountability is just noise. And I've been noisy for too long. Sana didn't take the envelope. Her throat worked. And after you fix this, he smiled sadly. Then I'll leave. For real this time. No lies. No disguises. Alana exhaled. He's telling the truth, she said softly. That's his exit plan. Clean slate. Redemption through sacrifice. Classic Malik King. He turned to her, voice cracking. You still hate me? Alana met his gaze for a long, silent moment. Then she said quietly, I stopped hating you the day I realized hate just keeps you on someone else's leash. He nodded, slowly. Then maybe we've both grown. Maybe, she said. He turned back to Sana, placing the envelope gently on the counter. Whatever happens next, keep this place running. Let it outlive all of us. Then he walked toward the door. Sana's voice stopped him. Malik. He turned. She swallowed, eyes shining. I don't forgive easily. But I see you trying. And maybe that's a start. He smiled. Soft. Broken. Real. That's all I ever wanted. He stepped into the rain again, coat collar up, fading into the gray. Sana stood there, staring at the door long after it closed. Alana picked up the envelope and handed it back to her. He means it this time, Alana said quietly. I know, Sana whispered. But meaning, it doesn't always make it easier. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky, and in that split second, Everett Vale's car rolled past the window. Slow, deliberate, watching. Before we reach the end of this story, I just want to say, your support means everything. Every like, every share, every comment helps me bring more stories like this to life. So, if you're enjoying this one, Take a second to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Your comment might just get a shout out in the next video. Now, let's finish what we started. The next morning broke with thunder. Sana hadn't slept. She sat at her kitchen table, the envelope Malik left still unopened in front of her. Every time she reached for it, her hand froze. It wasn't just paper. It was his heart. Folded, sealed, and delivered too late. A knock came at the door. Sharp, unfamiliar. She hesitated before answering. When she opened it, Everett Vale stood on her porch, a smirk cutting across his face. Umbrella tilted just so. "Morning, Ms. Hill. Or should I say, soon-to-be former owner of Hill's Cafe." Sana's stomach tightened. "You have some nerve showing up here." "Oh, I have more than nerve," Everett said smoothly, stepping inside without invitation. "I have paperwork. You really should have checked your accounts before getting sentimental." He placed a stack of documents on her counter. "Foreclosure proceedings. Effective Monday." Sana's breath caught. "You can't." "Oh, I can," he said. "Malik's money may have bought him a little peace, but it didn't buy you time. His offshore transfer came from a flagged account. The feds froze it this morning." She stared at him. "You're lying." Everett grinned. "I don't lie. I just get ahead of the truth." Before she could respond, another voice came from behind him. "Then let's see how you handle it when the truth catches up." Everett turned and froze. Malik stood in the doorway, drenched again, his eyes blazing with something raw and dangerous. "Always the hero," Everett sneered. "Don't you ever get tired of showing up right after you've lost?" Malik stepped closer. "You're not getting this cafe." "Oh, please," Everett said, laughing. "You think I came here for coffee? I came here for closure. You left me holding the bag 10 years ago, remember? Now I'm holding the deed." "Not anymore," said a calm voice from the kitchen. Everett turned to see Alana standing by the counter holding a folder. "What is this? Family reunion day?" he said, irritation creeping into his voice. "Something like that," Alana replied. "While you were busy plotting, I filed a new claim this morning. With the Secretary of State's office. My brothers and I officially dissolved the Vale King partnership, which means all assets under that name are frozen for review." Everett's face darkened. "You can't." "I already did," Alana said. "And I brought copies." She slid the documents across the counter toward him. "See, you might have been clever with paperwork, but you forgot one thing. Malik King may have built that empire, but we inherited it." Malik's voice was low, but firm. "You taught me everything about leverage, Everett. I just finally learned how to use it for good." Everett's smirk faltered. "You think this ends me?" "No," Malik said. "It ends your hold on her." Sana watched, heart pounding, as Everett's composure cracked. He snatched the papers, scanning them furiously, muttering curses under his breath. When he looked up again, his eyes were cold. "You'll regret this." "No," Alana said sharply. "You will." She stepped closer. "You used my mother, my father, and this town. You turned everyone's dreams into collateral. It ends today." Everett straightened his jacket, forcing a smirk. "You're all so noble. It's adorable. But remember, noble people rarely win." He turned to leave, but Malik's voice stopped him. "Walk away, Everett, while you still can." Everett hesitated, then smiled that same poisonous smile. "Oh, I'm walking, Malik. But you and I both know the past has long legs." He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed felt like the first breath after a storm. Sana leaned against the counter, trembling. "Is it really over?" Malik looked at Alana. She nodded. "Legally, yes. Emotionally, that's on you two." Sana gave a shaky laugh. "You sound like your father." Alana smiled faintly. Guess that's one inheritance I can live with. Malik turned to Sana. You should still open that envelope. It's not money anymore. Just something I wanted you to have. She hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten, edges crinkled. She read quietly. For every lie I told trying to protect you, there's a truth I owe you. You are the only thing I ever built that wasn't for profit. If I leave this world tomorrow, I need you to know. You were never my mistake. You were the proof that I could love right. Even if I couldn't, stay right. Sana's throat tightened. Why didn't you just say this before? Malik looked at her, eyes heavy. Because I didn't think I deserved to. Alana glanced between them. You two need a minute. I'll wait outside. She stepped onto the porch, leaving them alone. The cafe was quiet again, except for the rain easing to a soft drizzle. Sana finally met his gaze. So, what happens now? Malik stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, like approaching something sacred. Now I stop running, from you, from them, from me. She studied his face, the exhaustion, the humility. And if I can't forgive you? He smiled sadly. Then I'll still be here. Because some love stories don't need happy endings, just honest ones. She hesitated, then reached out, her hand brushing his. Maybe this one can have both. He looked at her, hope flickering through the storm. You'd really let me try again? Sana took a breath, steady, but trembling. Don't try. Just be here. This time, that's enough. Outside, Alana watched through the window, a small, knowing smile on her face. She pulled out her phone, typing a message to her brothers. He's finally home. The camera of your story would fade slowly, the cafe lights glowing warm against the rain-soaked glass, two silhouettes standing close again after years of distance. Malik King, once a billionaire, once a runaway, finally found something he couldn't buy, couldn't fake, couldn't lose this time. Peace, love, and a woman who saw him as a man, not a name. If this story touched you, don't just scroll away. Your support, your like, share, and comment means more than you think. It's what keeps this channel alive and helps me tell even bigger stories next time. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. You might hear your name in my next shoutout.